Hey there, I'm Scott Winfield, and welcome to a new web series from Victorian Opera. During the COVID-19 pandemic, people are self-isolating all around the world, and we wanted to know what some of our favourite artists were doing to pass the time. On this first episode of Artists in Isolation, we're very lucky to be joined by world-famous soprano, the Queen of Bel Canto, Jessica Pratt. Thank you so much for joining us. You are our first guest on Artists in Isolation.
I've been the longest in isolation, probably.
For those who don't know that you do live in Florence, what has life been like for you sort of over the past however long you've been in isolation for?
Well, at first it was quite shocking because, of course, there were all these deaths and people were so sick, and at first it was very sad because the places that got hit the worst were where I have a lot of friends and where I sing very often. For example, in Bergamo, where they have a Donizetti festival because Donizetti was born there. They say that probably 1 in 4 people is infected, and every single person in that city has lost somebody very close to them. So it's tragic, and so I had a lot of trouble with that in the first few weeks. I remember when it went up to nearly 1,000 deaths in one day, it was just terrible. The next day I didn't want to get out of bed, and I baked 3 cakes and ate them.
I think a lot of us are turning to comfort food right now as a means to sort of get through what is so confusing and so unknown to us. Given, the death toll was so high on so many days, like all of us around the world were watching Italy through its darkest hour. How do you overcome that? Like, how do you sort of guide yourself forward when there's such an enormous sort of collective cultural grief?
Well, it's not easy because there's obviously no escaping it. I mean, sure, you could just not turn on the internet and pretend nothing's happening, but I can't do that. I'm one of those people that, reads all the critical reviews and all the comments, so I'm certainly going to read all the news. Even now, I try not to think about it because it's terribly sad. They had to have the army come in. The army is still coming in twice a week to the towns to take the bodies away. There's no getting over that. There's no dealing with it, really, I don't think. I cried a lot, still cry. And to know that there's not really any foreseeable end to this within this year, because it's a virus. There's no vaccine. There's not going to be a vaccine for a long time. And while we can get it down to a low level in this country, as soon as somebody from another country comes in, and then it will start to spread. So I mean, just the not knowing of what are we going to do? How is this going to function? I'm pretty sure the opera companies are not going to open even if we get to move around again, because here in Italy, you're not allowed to leave the house. Not even to walk around, nothing. 1 person from each family is allowed to go to the supermarket once a week, and people do get checked and fined and so on. At first they were arresting people, but they've stopped doing that because I don't think they have space in the jails. But people are behaving better now, and they're following the rules because it's frightening, and fear will actually make you do that. But yeah, even with this situation, even if things go down and things get better and people can move around slightly more freely, they're not going to open theaters. They're not going to open spaces where people get together in groups. They can't. So for singers and people working in the cultural field, it's sort of a mystery land. We don't know what's going to happen. Every day I receive new emails of contracts being cancelled, and I don't think a lot of people understand that when a contract gets cancelled, we don't get paid anything. I'm in a position where I'm okay, because I have savings, but there are a lot of singers who live from contract to contract, and it's not their fault. That's how it is. That's how this business is. And from one day to the next, they've lost an entire season, not one show or one production, a season. So people who have got mortgages and children and everything else, they're in a lot of trouble, and that's a big problem.
A huge problem, and I think so many people across the art sector, all around the world, are facing unprecedented strain and a lack of understanding for the situation that they find themselves in.
When a theatre closes, it's not just singers and a couple of musicians that are out of work. It's all the people that work in the theatre. It's the backstage people, the people who do makeup, the people who make costumes, people in the offices, the assistants, the stage assistants, so many people are without work, and they're all mostly on part-time contracts. They're not on full-time contracts. So all those people and all those families are now with nothing. And we're talking hundreds of people. In some of these theaters, even 1,000. It would be like saying, oh, well, a small company has closed down from one day to the next. In Italy, there would be like a big, protest that, Fiat or something like that closes down. But La Scala closes down. Oh, well, it's just an opera company.
A total misunderstanding for the enormity of an operation that is to run a performing arts company, and sort of the entire backstage mechanism that it is, on stage and backstage, to put a single production on stage.
Mm-hmm. And also what that company brings to the community in which it lives. So it's bringing people who are traveling to see the operas, it's bringing people who sleep in hotels, who buy things in shops. It does make money for the local government and the local city that this company is in, and people forget that too. They don't see the fallback, everything that comes after this.
What role is music playing in people's lives right now, and the arts more generally?
Well, that's the point. I mean, what are people doing right now? They're watching television, they're watching movies, they're listening to opera, they're reading books. They are using culture and art to get them through this moment. And so you cannot say that culture and art is not an integral and important part of our society, especially in a moment of difficulty like this.
Yes.
So yeah, the first things the Italians turn to, of course, is singing and eating.
What else have you been cooking during this time?
Well, in this time, because my in-laws are in Naples and they're closed in their apartment, I've been talking with my mother-in-law, who, she's a big cook, so when she comes here, she just goes straight in the kitchen, and she'll stay there all day and all night, and I don't think she actually eats. She just kind of tastes things, and then like when you sit at the table, she never wants to eat. She eats a little bit, but it's her way of like showing love to her, taking care of her son and her family and the people around her. And I felt that she was really suffering not being able to do that in such a terrible situation, because my sister-in-law lives in Switzerland. She's a scientist, and my husband is here with me, and they're alone in Naples. And so I started saying, well, why don't you teach me the things that Ricardo likes to eat, and I'll cook them here. And I've never been able to cook. I'm a terrible cook, and usually my husband will not let me cook anything. If I say let's cook,
why can I ask, why do you think that is? Because you spend so much time on the road, so perhaps you haven't had an opportunity to.
I'm like a single man. When I'm on the road, I eat like, all right, if I cook something, it would be like a soup or a rice salad that I'll eat the whole week.
Yes.
I won't even heat up the soups I buy. Seriously, I will just drink them out of the carton. I'm really lazy and really bad. Yes, true. Confessions of an opera singer. Or I'll just go and buy a salad and eat that, or a sushi or something like that. I'm terrible. I don't.
What would your dear friend Maggie Beer say?
Oh, she knows. I confessed to her because when I went to her house, we were all talking about food and cooking and stuff, and I said, well, I'm sorry, but I don't really I don't cook. It doesn't interest me at all. No interest. And so now I've suddenly discovered I love cooking. I love it. I'm drying my, zucchini. I'm putting them out in the sun like I'm supposed to, because the first day I made, there's this dish called zucchini alla scapece, I think it is. It takes all day, and it's just zucchini. Basically, you have to get out in the morning at the right time of day.
What is the right time of day?
Well, it's just when the sun's coming up, but it's not too hot. And so you dry the zucchini in the sun, then you turn them around after an hour, you dry them some more, and then you fry them at lunchtime, and then you put them in like this thing of, vinegar and everything else, and oil and more oil, and you just let them sit, and then you can eat them in the evening. So it literally takes all day to make a side dish. But it's one of my favorites. And now I probably won't ask my mother-in-law every time she comes to make me this, because I didn't realize it was so complicated. But that's one of my favorite ones. Also because it takes up so much of the day. That's awesome. Distracts me. It's a good distraction, cooking now.
Yes.
But yeah, I've made, every day I cook dinner and lunch, and I prepare a cake for breakfast, because Italians eat cake for breakfast, which I think is fabulous.
It is a fantastic cultural gift to the world.
It is. Cake for breakfast.
Why not? I was curious to know, clearly your life has changed dramatically since you've been required to self-isolate. How much time would you typically spend at home each year?
In a whole year, I might spend 3 weeks, maybe 4 if I'm lucky, but it's broken up into different parts. Like I'll go away for 7 months and then I'll come home for 3 days, and then I'll go away again for 3 months and come home for a week, and that kind of situation. So spending an entire month at home, it might be the first time I've done that in 7 or 8 years.
That's in that in its own right is quite extraordinary.
Yeah, it's odd, and I wondered, like, you know, how I'd cope with my husband because we see each other all the time. Like, we never go more than, say, 10 days, although the last year we have gone a few months. But we usually see each other. He flies to wherever I am and you know, stays for a week or so and then goes back and then comes back a couple of weeks later. But we've never spent so much time together, and also time where literally we cannot leave the house. We're in the house together all the time. Thankfully, it's a big house. I can like go next door. I left him on the first week. I said, I'm leaving you. And I walked outside and walked in the other side of the house.
How long before you walked back?
Like 15 minutes.
To walk it off.
Locked me out. He locked me out. I said, no, you left. I locked the doors. But no, we're doing really well. It's nice, you know, it's nice to spend so much time with him and, like, you know,
of course,
not be stressed out by work, because usually when I'm home, I'm learning the next opera, packing my bags, trying to figure out what I'm going to need for the next 4 months, unpacking the last lot, washing it all. So it's really nice time to be at home and not have to think about opera or work or anything really, because there's nothing to do.
It must have been quite unusual to unpack your suitcase.
Yeah, like I didn't do it for the first week or two, and then I was like, oh, this is serious. I'm not going anywhere. And so I just unpacked it and put it up onto the wardrobe, which I haven't done in years, because I don't unpack my suitcase when I come home. I live out of my suitcase because I'm only here a week, and I usually just keep the same stuff all year round in my suitcase, adding a few heavier items or taking away. So when I come home, I don't unpack it. I just keep using the suitcase, using sometimes other clothes, but you know.
How has this abundance of time changed your life? Of course, you're able to spend so much more time with your husband, Ricardo, but have you developed any hobbies that you've been waiting to develop? Or
The cooking is cool. I love cooking now. I'm a big fan of cooking. I've started gardening a lot. We're lucky because we have property and we have a lot of space, because if you don't have your own private garden, you're not allowed outside. And I don't know how I would have coped in, like, you know, a small apartment and not being able to go outside. It makes a huge difference. Also just physically, because you're moving around a lot, and we have 3 floors, so I'm going up and down 3 floors all day long, so I'm not going to feel as bad as I know a lot of my friends are when they have to go outside again. So I've been doing a lot of gardening. Ricardo is working like crazy on the land and so on, because we made this brilliant thing of buying this enormous house to rent to tourists, and now absolutely nobody is going to come and rent our house. So it's just the 2 of us in 10 bedrooms getting it ready for a summer that's never going to happen.
Well, if you have another fight, at least you've got 10 bedrooms to sort of move around between.
I did sleep in the other bedroom twice, maybe.
You live in a Tuscan villa. It would be rude of me not to ask, can we have a little tour?
Of course, I will take you on a little tour in the
very
around. We live in the countryside, but it's still in the city, so you can walk down into the town in about 5 minutes, but it feels like you're in the middle of nowhere because we don't have neighbors, which is important to me because then I can sing and I don't have trouble. But here it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful view. I fell in love with the view here more than the house. The view is just gorgeous. And we have, I think, about 700 olive trees. So I am literally pruning them myself this year. Usually, you know, somebody comes and prunes them, but I've got the time. I've figured out it takes me 15 minutes a tree, so I should be able to get it done by the end of the month. So I'm doing that. I'm growing food from all the vegetables we eat. I save seeds and grow new vegetables. I'm very excited about that.
So How has the gardening supported you? Because of course gardening is such a wonderful way to maintain mindfulness and to sort of find balance and sort of create calm in ourselves. Is that what it's been doing for you?
It helps you slow down. It helps me slow down because I'm used to doing so many things at the same time, because it's not just singing, but it's, you know, traveling, finding places to stay, doing taxes in 5 different countries. So I'm always like running around like a blue ass fly, you know? And
Definitely an Australian. Definitely grew up in Queensland.
and they're annoying, those flies. They bite. Yeah, so it was weird. It was hard to slow down. It was hard to stop. And I had this terrible sense of guilt in the beginning because I wasn't singing. And I had a lot of nightmares about missing shows, you know, like turning up late for the show and it had already started. And those tended to happen actually on the dates when I had shows that were cancelled. Somehow in the back of my mind, I must have been remembering that I was supposed to sing. And I would have a nightmare that I like didn't turn up to the show, or I turned up with the wrong music, or, you know, something like that.
Isn't that interesting how your brain's programmed, you know, because you've got such a diarised calendar, that your brain sort of instinctively knew where you were.
It knew that I should be in Sale right now singing Lucia, and then like I think today or tomorrow there was a concert in a solo concert orchestra, and so every time these things happened, I think get a little stressed subconsciously, and I didn't sleep well in the beginning, of course, but the growing of the plants and seeing them come through and just waiting and, you know, every day checking on them and giving them enough water, not too much, and it's just really, I don't know, it kind of slowed me down a bit, which is a good thing because it's healthy. And I've been whinging for years about wanting to spend a month at home, so I will never say that again as long as I live.
I think another wonderful aspect of gardening is that it sort of teaches you in a way about sort of the cycle of life, but also the sort of cycle of care. That, you know, we essentially are houseplants ourselves, and that you need to sort of tend to something for it to maintain health.
Yes, exactly. And it's slow. I found a really nice quote when I was reading one of the books about, you know, developing talent. And it said we need to think like a gardener and work like a carpenter or something like that. So you just have to have patience and work very, very slowly on the voice and on technique and so on. And it's the same with the gardening. You just have to have patience and take care and think about it. And I also, like, I have 4, you probably can't see them because of the light, but I have 4 orchids back there, which were half dead at the beginning of this period. And now they're like, you know, making new flowers and all super happy because I'm taking care of them.
Well, if you ever need any advice on your orchids, you can always call Richard Mills. I'm sure he'd be very excited and happy to walk you through their care.
I've watched so many YouTube videos on how to plant this and how to raise this seed and seedling and what to do, and it's been an interesting time learning new things.
I'm curious to know, given, you know, how much you work, because you do work prolifically, what role is music playing in your life right now?
It's non-existent. I don't listen to music, I don't have it, and I don't sing. Because I think it's just too much for me. It's too... music is a very emotional thing for me, especially opera. I can listen to a bit of jazz every now and then, but I cannot listen to opera. It just gets me way too teary. It just opens the floodgates.
With this time and sort of... I think we all find ourselves in the same position. What do you have a renewed gratitude for in life?
My husband, because he's really good, and
You married well.
I did, and I don't know how I would have coped with this. I said to him the other day, like, before I met him, I lived in a 1-room flat in Como, and it was a lovely flat, but it didn't even really have a balcony. It had a window that opened, but it had no balcony, and I did have a dog, so I would have been allowed to go downstairs and let the dog pee, but that would be about the only outing I would have been allowed to have each day. And I think being alone there would not have been a good thing, because, you know, he's very good, and he knows, like, you know, sometimes you have positive days and sometimes you have negative days, and when I have a low day, he like gives me my space, but he checks on me, and, you know, it's important to have people that are, you know, that understand you close by. So I think probably the most renewed thankfulness would be for him and his family and my family. And And nature, like I love nature, and it's always been like a super important thing to me. But being able to be here in the spring, I'm thankful this happened in the spring and not the winter, because you see everything growing and you see life happening. I mean, we have a lot of deer and wild boar and so on around the house, and the pheasants are mating now, so there's all these pheasants around. My dog loves chasing them. I'm a vegetarian, but I did say to my husband, if he catches one, I'm plucking it and eating it.
Well, you can call Richard Mills for your advice about orchids, because he literally is a specialist, and then you can call Maggie Beer for your advice about pheasants, because she literally is a specialist. You've got a very good Rolodex.
I do. I got help on hand.
And people have time to help you.
Yes, exactly. Everybody has time right now. I'm finding that because usually, with the opera fans in Italy, we're all very close-knit community here. And so normally I would get between 15-20 messages a day of 15-20 people writing. Now it's like between 50 and 60 a day writing, and wanting, because everybody's at home, everyone wants to chat, and so it's fun, it's interesting, because you really get to know a lot of people that you kind of knew but not very closely, and that's quite nice. And some of them worry a lot, and they check up on you, and and we're doing a lot of recipe swapping. A lot of recipe swapping is going on. I think everybody's going to have perfectly clean, organized houses, and they're all going to have to go shopping for new clothes at the end of this.
You mentioned one of your dogs before, and you mentioned indeed Tancredi before when he barked. How many pets do you have, and how overjoyed are they that you're home?
We have far too many. We have 3 cats, and there are another 2 cats that are like wandering around outside trying to get in. But our last cat, who was a stray, he was actually wild, and it took me 6 months to tame him because I wasn't here very often. Now he's a big fat house cat, but he won't let any new cats come in, so he's like guarding his territory. And we have 2 other cats who were always here. They're like 17 years old, they're quite old. And then we have, he's called Pirotto, Micha, and Micho are the names. No, Micho died. Paletta, Micha, and Pirotto are the ones we have at the moment. And Buddy and Daisy are my little dogs that I had before I met Ricardo. And I used to travel around with them. And now they're country dogs. And Tancredi is the last one. He's a Doberman. He's about 40 kilos. He's a big buffer. He's full of himself. But he's a lot of fun. So yeah, 3 dogs, 3 cats.
Well, they must be very, very happy to have their mum home.
Yeah, they're super happy. And, I see the animals are all much more relaxed because we're here and we're spending, well, now that the spring has come, we're spending all day outside as well, which helps them as well to run around and be in the sun, and it's good. It's nice.
Okay, I have an exciting last question for you. I'm gonna ask 2 questions. What do you miss most right now, and then what are you most looking forward to when you finally get to sort of resume normal life again?
The thing I miss is just actually hanging around with, being with my friends and my family, and not just on Skype. That would be the main thing I miss. I think after a month, I've just started to miss traveling, and obviously making music with orchestras and with more people is beautiful and fun. But yeah, mainly just friends.
And for our last question, what is the first thing that you'll do when you are able to resume normal life?
Go to the supermarket and get what I want to get from my list, because my husband does the shopping right now and he pretends to forget half the list. So seriously, the first thing is to go to the supermarket and get it done right. The second thing would be to get a coffee at the coffee shop, because I can make them now. I'm pretty good at getting the froth and everything, but I miss going to the coffee shop.
Absolutely. Well, Jessica, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for being our first guest on Artists in Isolation.
Thank you.
Lots of love to you and Ricardo, and all of the dogs and the cats, and please stay safe.
Thanks, lots of love to you too.
For more chats with Artists in Isolation, you can follow at Victorian Opera across social media, or head to victorianopera.com.au. I'm Scott Winfield. Thanks for watching.